Hi, it's Terry Gaines. I'm going to show you a fun technique called rolling marbles to create a fun background and give you some assembly tips on creating this card using the Gather Together bundle that is in the 2019 holiday catalog by Stampin' Up. So to get started, we need a plastic container. Several years ago, Stampin' Up had their stamp sets, wood stamp sets in these plastic containers. They worked great, but they're not as easy to come by today because they've not been available for quite a while. So what I'm using for the technique is an acetate box, card box that Stampin' Up sells. They come in a quantity 10, and we're going to need 2 of these for today's project. So they come flat, they're scored and already cut to size. So what you need to do is just form them into a box, and I'm going to close one end. We need this box closed, and this flap is on the bottom, and we're going to consider this the top. And before I close this end, but I do want to get it all prepped so I can close it easily, I'm going to put some refill ink on the bottom of this panel. The colors I'm going to use today is the Pretty Peacock. It will match the coordinating cardstock that I'm using, Mint Macaron, and Cajun Craze. And I picked these 3 colors because Stampin' Up! Has picked these 3 colors for the coordinating designer series paper that goes with the stamp set. But we're not going to use the paper, but it's still a great way to get the color combinations is to use what Stampin' Up! Has used. So I'm going to open up the box, and inside I'm going to drop 2 drops of refill of the Cajun Craze. I'm going to go ahead and, I got a healthy drop of the, 2 Pretty Peacock, 2 Cajun Craze, but I got quite a bit there. And then a generous drop of the Mint Macaron. So now what I'm going to do is inside the box, I'm going to take 5 marbles. This end is closed. The flap is on the bottom, and I'm going to place these right in the box and then close the box. It's important that we keep this flap so this slit is open on the top. Then I'm going to roll the marbles around a little bit into the ink to get some ink on the marble. And then I'm going to take a piece of Pretty Peacock cardstock. It is cut 3 3/4. That's what I need for my card. You can actually cut this close to 4 1/4 width, depending on what you're going to be making. But also it needs to be cut 6 3/4 long. We need it to go all the way across to be bigger than the box size. So I'm going to slip this cardstock in this opening, go all the way across the top. It's going through really easy. Sometimes you need to help it get in that slit. Then I'm going to hold it equal spacings on both sides, flip it over. Now I'm going to roll the marbles onto the cardstock, and the ink on those marbles is transferring to the cardstock. I'm going to turn it back over, and you go as long as you are good with the consistency. And now we have that ink transferred. Because I used a darker cardstock, you don't see the different colors the same as you would on white cardstock, but you do see a variety of variance in the color. So you can actually use any color cardstock. For this project, I wanted the Pretty Peacock. Now I'm going to do a second technique on here, and just to let you know, keep slipping your cardstock through here and keep making more background papers. Once the colors kind of blend together and you're not happy with the results, not as noticeable on dark cardstock, but more noticeable on white cardstock or vanilla, all you need to do is open this up, rinse it in the sink, leave the marbles in there, the water will come through, rinse it until it's clear, and then dry them off, and you can start all over and go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to do with a brand new box, we need 2 for this particular technique, is add some of the copper refill that's in the holiday catalog. I'm going to drop 2 or 3 little spots on here, and this time I'm only going to put 3 marbles in there. Close the box. Oops, I should have pre-prepped that end. close the box. It works easier if you kind of get that in shape first. Then I'm going to roll the marbles onto that ink, kind of get some ink onto the marble, all three of them. Take this paper, turn it upside down, place it through here, all the way to the back, or to the other end, equal spacing, turn it over. Now roll the marbles onto the cardstock. Now you want to kind of go around. Also, to let you know, the ink, this metallic ink, will not dry on this plastic case. It does rinse out really good, just like the, to clean it out, it rinses out good. But sometimes, like, if I want to do more of these, and you can see I got a little glob on there, I squeezed it too tight and got a marble to stick on the top. But not a problem. It's the back side. And when you put the metallic on there, look at how fun that is. I'm not sure if it shows up on the camera, but now I need to let this dry a little bit because the metallic ink needs longer time to absorb into the paper. It cannot absorb into this plastic coating or the plastic case, so it's not going to dry. So I intend to just slip this into a Ziploc box or bag, and that might not even be necessary, but I'm going to keep this like this and just keep using this because it'll be a great way to add a little bit of color, metallic color, to lots of different projects. So what I mentioned, you need to let this dry. So what I did ahead of time is I did that, and then I cut it to the size I needed. So I trimmed off one end and the other end. For this card, I need this to be 2 3/4. It was already cut to 3 3/4. What I'm going to do is layer it on a piece of copper cardstock that I have cut to 3 by 4. What I did before for prep work is I ran the 3 leaves dies that are in the, gosh, what is this one called? This is called the gathered leaves die. It's the bundled with the stamp set for the together bundle. I'm sorry, gather together bundle. Anyway, so what I need to do is adhere this. And the reason I cut these out is this is a specialty paper. This is going to be sandwiched between the cardstock and the card base. Nobody's going to see that we have missing pieces here. So I'm going to use the Stampin' Up! Snail and apply adhesive on the back of this, match my opposite corners, equal spacing, and layer this. I'm going to put this on a pretty peacock card base that is 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. An option for you is to run this through the subtle folder. I just placed it in the subtle folder, ran it through, and got a little bit of a texture to the card base. That's an option. I kind of like doing that. And then on the back of any of these specialty foil papers, your adhesive, you have to go fairly slow to get your adhesive to stick to it. You want to slow down a little bit for that. And then what I'm going to do is just place this in on the card front towards the left side of the card. So as I showed you, I ran these dies through the die cutting machine and cut them out from that foil paper. I'm going to take my fingers and just form up the ends of the leaves a little bit to add a little bit of dimension to them. And on the back, I'm going to just apply the snail adhesive and place these flat on the card. And I'm just going to arrange them, kind of spread them a little bit here, put the smaller one down on this end. And ahead of time, what I did was I stamped a sentiment from the stamp set on a scrap paper, punched it out with the everyday label punch. And on the back side of this, I'm going to place some of the Stampin' Up! Dimensionals. And I'm going to put 4 on this. That way it will adhere well. And this gets placed right over, whoops, right over these leaves. And I'm going to place it down like that. The last leaf I have here, and I didn't grab the dies. I should have grabbed those so you could see those on the camera. But what I did for this one, I actually took my die and I opened up my ink pad and I placed the die texture side down to my ink pad, then dropped it off, or got it off, put it on my cardstock, ran it through my die cutting machine, and you can see that the ink transferred to the cardstock as it cut and embossed. What's really great about these dies, they do cut and emboss all at the same time. So I put one dimensional on there, and I'm going to place that leaf down. The last embellishment for the front is a piece of the copper 1/4 inch trim that's in the annual catalog. I have about 3 inches here. I also have ink on my fingers from a previous project. Been stamping quite a bit this morning. Then what I do is I tie a single knot, stretch the ends. It's kind of like a netting, so you can kind of form that a little different there. And then take a mini glue dot. All of these supplies, other than the marbles here, are in the Stampin' Up! Catalog. And just put a mini glue dot on there, and that will finish the front of the card. The Whisper White cardstocks cut 3 3/4 by 5. Stamp your inside sentiments and images, and that gets layered to the inside of the card. If you found me via YouTube, in the comment section you'll have a direct link to my blog post where you'll find the supply list, measurements, and instructions for this project. There's a PDF you can download and a direct link to my Stampin' Up! Store to purchase the supplies. I would love to have you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just click the red box below the video. Thanks for stopping by, and I hope you enjoyed creating this project with me.